at the Frat House as sports. God, sports is in the air, not spring. Yes, here on the last week in April, and you got Frat House Mike and Sidekick bringing it all to you on the first evening of the first round of the NFL draft. And we've got that covered, and we've got all of our other regular sports covered as well. But let's just take a peek in for just a couple of seconds, because it is a big night with the NFL draft starting up. And this draft, it has absolutely been, in my recent memory, one of the most discussed, argued, speculated, prognosticated drafts I can possibly ever remember. And, well, you know, our esteemed commissioner, Roger Goodell, well, he'll be announcing with the number one pick in the 2013 draft, the Kansas City Chiefs take in just about, about 50, maybe about an hour, 50 minutes to an hour or so. And it seems to me, Sidekick, that the reason that there's been so much controversy over this draft is because this has been a draft that's been kind of like a lot like the NCAA tournament that we just concluded a couple of weeks ago. No true number one, no dominating starting lineup at all. You know, when you compare it to last year's, we knew, it was obvious who the number one, number two, number three, number four were, and even a bit more down the line. But this draft is just almost absolutely schizophrenic.
I was going to say, you know, to kind of break down what you just said and simplify it, this class kind of sucks. Basically, is what you're trying to say. I mean, you're trying to say it politely, but this class kind of sucks.
Okay, you bring up an interesting point. And I'm going to throw a couple of questions at you. You did a mock draft. I did a mock draft for our Frat House Sports League game that we did here. Now, you're saying that you think that the reason there's so much speculation about this particular draft is because it's a weak draft class. And yet, you know, a lot of analysts have indicated that, you know, if you're looking for offensive linemen, if you're looking for defensive linemen, offensive tackles, defensive secondary, this is a very strong draft. Why is there so much speculation? You really believe it's because this is a weak, as you say, sucking draft class?
I kind of joke about that, but I think, you know, previous drafts like last year, you know, we saw Luck, you know, and then years before, you know, I think when you start talking about, you know, a strong defensive line class or a strong offensive line class, and you're not talking about the weapons,
the skill positions,
the wide receivers, running backs, the quarterbacks, right? You know what I mean? People are like,
okay, but
it's like going to, you know, a football game and it's a defensive game where there's not a lot of scoring. But people kind of like,
did we get spoiled? Did last year spoil us? Did we get to a point where
I think the past couple of years kind of got spoiled because you had Cam Newton, you had Luck, you know, RG3, you know, you had these dynamic players and personalities, and what are we talking about in this draft class?
Yeah, you're right.
We've got the imaginary girlfriend. We've got a guy that tweets about taking the money.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, you know, there's no...
Okay, so let's go over it real quick.
Okay.
Because, we as I said, we've got about an hour probably before we hear Goodell get up and make the first pick.
We could probably sit here and talk for an hour.
Probably for Kansas City. Yeah, absolutely we could. For Kansas City. 1, 2, 3, 4. Who were your number 1, 2, 3, 4s in your mock draft?
I got Jokel going to the Chiefs.
Right.
I went out of the box and I had Geno Smith going to the Jaguars.
That is out of the box. Go ahead.
Eric Fisher going to the Raiders.
Okay.
And then I got Milner going to your Eagles.
To the Eagles. Okay. Who did you have going to your Rams?
Patterson and Ogletree.
Okay. Interesting. How do you have both?
I have Patterson first, Ogletree second.
Second round. You talking second round or?
No. The Rams have 2 picks.
That's right. You have 2 picks. Okay.
We've got 2 picks.
Okay. And real quick, although we're hearing things are changing dramatically as we go through this, things are changing constantly all afternoon. Like Sidekick, I had Joko going to the Chiefs. I had Milner actually going over to the Jaguars. I had Sharif Floyd going over to the Raiders. And I had Eric Fisher coming over to the Eagles. I had Patterson as well going over to your Rams. That's a good sign, maybe. I don't know.
And actually,
we'll see.
some of these mock drafts I've been seeing, a lot of them actually have Patterson going to the Rams.
Really? Okay.
So it's I'm hoping maybe it kind of bodes
I'm
well.
going to tell you, I think Patterson would be a really good fit for your Rams. Absolutely.
Well,
you need something like that.
We do, because I've been talking about this for 2 years since we've been doing this show. That what Bradford's missing is receivers.
Yep.
And then this year we lost Gibson and we lost Amendola now.
Right.
So now we don't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
And we lost Jackson. We've lost our offense.
Yeah.
So,
and you're right. You need something there. You need an offensive line as well, however.
Absolutely.
Hopefully that's going to get addressed as well in this particular draft. Okay, there's our pre-draft chat. And you can bet that Sidekick and I will be dissecting all of the picks next week. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of surprises coming out of this as we go through round 1 tonight, rounds 2 and 3 tomorrow. All right? So I'm sure that, and those are going to be the rounds that everybody's got their eye on. All right? So I'm sure we're going to be.
And with the first pick in the NFL draft, I'd like to take the St. Louis Ribs.
We're going to be breaking it all down for you next week. All right? But let's... hold on. We got breaking news. Hey, a pick just came into us just moments ago. These are some of the individual NFL draft war rooms. And as you can see here, these rooms seem a bit harried, even a bit confused and a little bit disorganized. Look at this. But particularly like down here in room 1, you got the Chiefs down there. Things are... Very disorganized situation.
They got a buffet down there.
Look how calm, though. Look how calm they are over there in the Jaguars room. It seems obvious they're ready to go. Very organized, clean, neat as a pin. Yeah, they're ready
listen to me. They're gonna lock up Geno Smith. The
Jaguars, that second pick, they know exactly what they're doing. Look, they got a piece of cardboard out there, I think, that they're making notes on. Okay. I don't even see a computer in that room. But nobody even has. There's not even a tablet, I think, in there.
It's old school.
Yeah, really. What is it, like one of those pools? You just kind of...
Yeah.
All right. Let's go over and take a look at some other sports. Time again for our regular weekly motorsports update. And yes, we had a bit of a different look going on with drag racing this past weekend down at Charlotte, as they went 4 wide. For the only 4 wide racing we see all year. 4 wide racing, it's a little bit of a different animal, which allows for just about anything to happen, and we saw that in the final round of the funny car division, which had Matt Hagan, Blake Alexander, Tim Wilkerson, and Chad Head all going up against each other. Now, take note of what I just pointed out there. In that roundup, in that final round, no JFR cars, no Ron Cax, no Cruz Pedregon, and their improves. 4 wide can change the setup of these races. And in the end, it was Matt Hagan taking the strip in 4.07 seconds at 315.34 miles per hour. And that propelled Matt to the top. And so let's go take a look at the leaderboard following the 5th Nationals of the year. Over in the Top Fuel Dragster division, excuse me, it continues to be Tony Schumacher over Antron Brown, now leading him by 74 points. As I pointed out, in the funny car division, we have a new leader on the board with Matt Hagan. 50 points over Cruz Pedregon, 52 points over Courtney Force. Back and forth we go over in Pro Stock this week. It's Mike Edwards' turn at the top of the board, as he's 84 points ahead of Alan Johnson. And listen, don't sit on that one. That's going to change next week. Make no mistake. And yes, that's right. I did say next week, which is this weekend. There's no week off this week for NHRA drivers, as they are right back at it at the O'Reilly Auto Parts Spring Nationals this Friday through Sunday out in Houston, Texas, at the Royal Purple Raceway. And you can check that out. You can check out the Sunday finals and the Saturday qualifying, as a matter of fact, in a rare live.
We'll do it live!
Yes, they are. A very rare situation. They're going to do it live at 2
We'll do it
p.m.
live!
Yeah, right there. 2 p.m. on ESPN. Well, 2 p.m. on Sunday, You'll check your listings for Saturday on ESPN2. If you miss it, though, you can bet we're going to be bringing you the results next week. Okay. Now, race 8 over in NASCAR took place at the big track down at out in Kansas Speedway, and for the 3rd race in a row. And we're not sure whether it's ever happened, but if it ever has happened, it's few and very, very rare between. The pole leader turned out to be the race winner, the 3rd race in a row. As
I'm an excellent driver.
Well, we're going to talk about whether he was or not. As the 63-lap leading Joe Gibbs Racing number 20, driven by Matt Kenseth, held off all challengers for his 2nd win of this season. Following 8 cautions and 3 wrecks, including a glorious one that you're going to see at the end of this show, a big one between Kyle Busch and Joey Logano in lap 102. Others who persevered and came in the top 5 included Casey Kane, who came in 2nd. There's Jimmy Johnson with another top 5 finish, coming in 3rd. Martin Truex Jr. got 4th, and Clint Bowyer came in 5th.
And Danica Patrick got another top 25 finish.
Well, there you go. There you go. Consistency, I think, is what you always say is important in NASCAR.
Absolutely.
All right, so there you go. Right there, it's proven. And so we're going to take a look at the leaderboard, and it might turn out that we're going to talk about it perhaps maybe a little bit longer than normal this evening because things have kind of gotten mixed up, well, this week, but also in the past couple of days. We're going to talk about it in a moment. Let's take a look at where it stands right now. Jimmy Johnson stays at the number 1 spot. Casey Kane takes over at number 2 with a win, and now 4 top 5s this season. Brad Keselowski moves down 1 to number 3. Greg Biffle stays in the number 4 spot. And due to that awful weekend that Kyle had, Dale Jr. moves back into the top 5 at number 5.
Yeah. And our biggest losers of the week were Kyle Busch, who dropped 5 spots. Joey Logano dropped 6 spots. And the biggest movers were, surprise, surprise, Martin Truex up 6 spots and Casey Kane up 5 spots.
Okay. But there was a biggest mover in 24 hours. And that was, and we got to talk about it. Here we go again, Sidekick. Just like last week, the leaderboard suddenly changed yesterday when NASCAR leveled one of the toughest penalties in their history against Joe Gibbs Racing's number 20, driven by Kansas winner Matt Kenseth, after the car's engine failed at post-race inspection.
There's something screwy around here.
One might say so. This resulted in a 50-point driver deduction to Kenseth, suspended the crew chief 6 races, and he was also fined, the crew chief was also fined $200,000. Joe Gibbs himself was suspended 6 races. Now, apparently all of this revolves around one of 8 connecting rods which failed to meet the minimum weight requirement by 3 grams.
2 cotton balls.
In the meantime, Toyota Racing Development took full responsibility. Toyota Racing Development, they're the ones that supply the actual engines to the teams. They took full responsibility for the error, saying, quote, "We take full responsibility for this issue with the engine. JGR is not involved in the process of selecting parts or assembling the Cup Series engines." Okay, nonetheless, NASCAR went ahead with the penalties. Okay, now, Sidekick. I don't mind saying to you right now that I'm a bit pissed off now, okay, about this one. All right? To me, this seems like it's getting a bit ticky-tack.
Piss me off.
All right? This is getting a bit ticky-tack when we're talking about 3 grams on one of 8 connecting rods. Go ahead. Settle me down if you need to, or maybe not. Give us your take on it.
The rules are the rules. Here's okay. So, Uncle Mark and I were kind of going back and forth on Facebook about this last night. There are parts of the rule book that are black and white. You just don't mess with them. Engines, tires, things like that. There's no gray area. You're going to get stomped on by NASCAR. And then there's gray areas. Things like what we saw Jimmy Johnson last year with the C-post. This year with the Penske racers with the rear ends and stuff. Those are gray area infractions. So they're kind of, looked at a little differently.
Okay, we're talking engines. You're saying it's the engine.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the penalty that came down on JGR for this, okay, even though Toyota has gone and said, hey, it's our fault, ultimately, the responsibility, though, falls on the race team. Mm-hmm. There are other race teams that build their own engines. Not all race teams have their what they call turnkey motors given to them by their manufacturer. Toyota.
Nobody's perfect.
Exactly. Toyota basically hands the motors over to the teams. The teams just put them in the cars.
Right.
Okay, and there's no the teams don't really QA them. They trust Toyota to do that. But in this instance,
I think it's a fair assumption. But go ahead.
There has been back in 2009. The name escapes me at the moment. There was another racer who got a similar penalty for problems with the engine. All right. Now this is under a different point system. That driver still actually has not come back to NASCAR because he can't afford to pay the fine that was levied to him at that time. And because he can't pay the fine, he can't work. He can't drive or do anything in NASCAR. If you look at the penalty in a vacuum, it looks harsh.
Yeah.
But when you look at the other rules and you compare it to some of the other cases, it's right in line with their penalties.
NASCAR's not doing themselves any favors. This is the fan base is looking at this, and can I be honest with you? My first reaction was we had a situation last week with a leader in the top 5. We have a situation this week with a leader in the top 5. What in the hell is NASCAR doing? Are they trying to manipulate what the outcomes are going to be of the entire season? Because that's certainly the way it's appearing. The analogy that I drew to it earlier today as I was thinking about this was we constantly complain about the referees. I don't care what sport it is, football, baseball, whatever, that interject themselves into a game in order to affect an outcome. Is this not the same kind of situation?
No. Now, last week with Penske, apparently there was somebody that may have tipped off NASCAR to go look at the cars.
Yeah, I've heard this.
That's in question.
Right.
Okay.
Well, regardless of whether somebody did or not.
I saw on the internet, actually, I think it was Bleacher Report, where they were insinuating that somebody tipped NASCAR off to Kenseth's car. Well, first of all, how do you tip somebody off that one of 8 connecting rods is 3 grams off? The second thing is every winner's car is impounded and they tear that thing apart.
Or is it a spot check on the backside?
No, they gut the car. The winner's car gets gutted.
Right.
And they measure everything down to connecting rods. So I don't think this is hey, we suspect there's something with Kenseth's car. No, this was routine check.
Every report that I have written or read has indicated that in no way whatsoever did this give Kenseth any kind of performance advantage whatsoever. In fact, I love the analogy that even Yahoo brought to it, where they said it failed the minimum weight requirement by 3 grams, less than the weight of an empty envelope. Seriously, Sidekick, this just looks ticky-tack to me. That's where I'm coming down on it.
No, I see, and where I see it is, that part of the rule book is black and white. It doesn't matter whether it was competitive advantage or not. What they're doing is they're taking what's the word I'm looking for? Intent out of the equation, and they're just saying if it doesn't meet the specs, it's punished.
So let it be written.
That way.
So let it be done.
That way, there's no potential favoritism or any of that. It's you're not within specs. Sorry, you're getting penalized. Now, what I will say though is JGR is going to appeal, and I think they should appeal.
Yeah.
Because I think that they can get the penalty to the crew chief lessened because it wasn't a motor out of Gibbs' shop. Mm-hmm. It was a Toyota, and Toyota has come back and they've said, hey, we're guilty.
Well,
we screwed up on quality control. Somehow this got in there. We don't know how, but it's our mistake.
Well, then that's going to set a precedent, and then other houses are going to sit there and go, well, then from this point forward, why don't we just let the manufacturer give us the engines and we can get off? You
Well,
understand what I'm saying?
I don't think they're going to get off.
Well, no, I'm not saying get off, but they'll get off with a lesser penalty.
Well, right, because you're basically appealing it to somebody else.
Right.
So, I don't think you're going to see, Joe Gibbs get anything reduced. And I don't think you're going to see Matt Kenseth get anything reduced. What you may see Ratcliffe get reduced down to three or four race suspension and maybe $100,000 fine. So. All
right. Well, listen, for our fans out there, time for you to chime in. Hit us up on Facebook. Tell us where you stand on it. You heard where I stand on it. You heard where Sidekick stands on it. We're going to agree to disagree a little bit on this one. Where do you come down on it? All right, we're back to both short track and nighttime driving down this week at Richmond International Raceway on a three-quarter mile track. And keep this in mind, you can catch that race Saturday. That's a Saturday night beginning at 7:30 on Fox. Now, before we move over to that, let's take a look at the Frat House Sports NASCAR Fantasy Leaderboard. There you have it. With a little bit of movement going on there following this past week's race. Both you and I stay in the top 10. Yep. But with so much movement going on, obviously both in real time and fantasy, what do we do this week with nighttime and short track racing? What do we do?
While we're talking about Matt Kenseth, before I get into the picks and things like that, let me just do a little note here. All these penalties that are may be levied on Kenseth and his team, none of those actually will affect fantasy points for him.
Right, they don't.
So the fact that they're vacating the win last week,
I noticed that,
and all that will not affect, and any of these suspensions and fines and Joe Gibbs penalties.
It's a funny thing you mentioned that. I actually went in and checked that this morning to see, hey, did this give me a leg up? Because I did not get this. I
actually read an article today about this, and if there are penalties assessed to a driver from a race, okay, from that weekend,
right?
If they are levied before 5 p.m. on Tuesday, they will update
the
fantasy points. If it comes after 5 p.m. on Tuesday, they'll leave the points of that for that race.
In both cases so far in the past 2 weeks, they've been on Wednesday.
Right.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, May 1st is when the appeal for
which is coming up,
Keselowski and Logano. So anyway, we're going to Richmond. Virginia is for lovers, but we're not going to see Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin hugging it out this weekend, as Denny Hamlin has announced that he won't be racing this weekend. So for those of you that thought you were going to get Denny Hamlin on your roster this week, which would have been a great pick had he been racing, you're not going to be able to pick him this week. So let's get to the rosters. We're going to start off with Kyle Busch, who's been on a bit of a little downhill spiral the past couple weeks. Kyle Busch has 4 wins at this track. They've all been the last 4 spring races, by the way. Mm-hmm. He's got 12 top 5s at the track, and in his career, he has yet to finish. He has finished all of his races on the lead lap.
Okay.
So he's going for 27.25. Now, again, remember, the prices I quote here may differ because you may have had him stashed on your roster. Like for me, I think he's like 26.25.
I don't even know what he is on my roster.
So, because I've been, he's been sitting on my roster for a couple weeks. We're going to go with Casey Kane. He's got 1 win and 4 top 5s at this track out of, I'm sorry. Wow, what did I do in my notes? 1 win, 4 top 5s, and out of the 8 races so far this season, he's only been outside of the top 10 3 times. 25-25 is what his rate is this week. For Uncle Mark, I'm putting Quentin Boyer on there. Mm-hmm. He's got 2 wins at this track, 8 top 10s, and has been in the top 10, or was in the top 10 on every short track last year. Mm-hmm. So he's going for 26.25. And then one of your favorites, Eric Amarola.
Yes, he is.
He's sitting in 12th in points right now, and this kid's he's going to break out some point at some point. At some point this season, he's going to break out. I'm telling you. And he's not bad on price. He's $16.75. And then last week with the low pick, I'm going to stay with him this week. I'm going to go with Timmy Hill. Rounding out your roster at $98.75.
All right, there you have it. There's our motorsports update for this week. Let's go over and take a look at Major League Soccer. We didn't get a chance to take a look at MLS last week.
Oh, no, we had a packed show last week.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, like this week isn't. So it's been 2 weeks. What's new in MLS? I can't give it to us.
All right, in the other round ball.
Yeah.
All right, well, the leaderboard. In the East, we've got Sporting KC sitting at 14 points. They're 4-2-2 overall. We've got the Houston Dynamo up there still. 13 points. They're 4-2-1. In the West, we've got FC Dallas, 19 points, 6-1-1. They seem to be really taking off there. And then we have the LA Galaxy with 11 points. They are 6-3-1.
The interesting thing I noted was that KC took over the number 1 spot and has not won a match in the past 2 weeks. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but I did. They had not won a match, but they took over that top spot.
Well, as long as
they tied and they lost, but
as long as they keep tying, they'll get points because a tie. We talked about this the other show. Ties 1 point, kind of similar to NHL.
Right. All right, we'll be back again to international football, American style, as I like to call it, in the future shows. And you can bet our resident expert sidekick will be keeping you up to date on that. All right, let's go over and take a look at Major League Baseball. Of course, it's still early in the season. Let's take a look at the league leaderboards as we enter the last week of the first month of the season. Over in the American League, the Boston Red Sox stay at the top with a 14-7 record and 2 games in front of the Orioles. My Kansas City Royals sleeper team take over, at least for a minute, in the Central. 10-8 record. They're just a half game in front of the Minnesota Twins. Texas Rangers take over in the West with a 14-7 record and a game and a half in front of the Oakland A's. In the National League, Atlanta Braves continue to be the best team in baseball with a 15-6 record. Now 4 games in front of, how about this, the New York Mets. Not the Washington Nationals. No, they dropped to third. In the Central,
because my Cardinals swept them.
There you go. In the Central, your Cardinals
Thank you.
still lead at 13-8, but they're just a half game in front of the Cincinnati Reds. And in the West, even with all the weather delays that we've seen and postponements, it's still the Colorado Rockies with a 14-7 record and a game and a half in front of the San Francisco Giants.
Apparently somebody said that hell would freeze over, and it has.
It certainly has. We're going to talk about that. Alrighty. Well, that sound means it's time for our weekly MLB feature, Frat House Mike's Screwy Ball Stories. And we're going to start it up by traveling overseas to Taiwan. And we're going to continue our journal from last season's Sidekick of following everybody's PED poster boy, Manny Ramirez, who, he just couldn't find a home here last season on any even minor league team. But he seems to have found a home and a house in Taiwan. The other evening, he hit a monster home run and then proceeded to take a 30-minute, can you imagine, 30-second jaunt in his home run trot around the bases. Now, you might say, well, okay, what's a big deal? Wait, the average base runner generally gets around the bases following a home run in about 15 to 18 seconds. But Ramirez, he made every effort and second to admire his work, including starting the trot, going backward to watch the ball go out. So one has to wonder whether it took him so long, okay, and I put this out there as a question. A, because age is catching up to him. B, because he's obviously not juicing currently, so he doesn't have the speed. C, he's an egotistical crumb who's just mugging it up for the cameras and crowds. Or D, all of the above. So we're going to bring you the video here right now. We're going to let you hear it, see it, along with the Taiwanese play-by-play. And you make the decision. You make the call. Here we go.
，Godzilla! Free OB beer for everyone!
I heard it. See it. And they showed it. There. You see the replay. You gotta watch. You gotta love the backward running down the first baseline. There we go. We're gonna go backward. There we go. Let's watch that all the way out.
Translated.
Listen.
Translated. It's washed up PED users come to Taiwan. We don't test.
I'm pretty sure. Now, did you hear it? I'm pretty sure the announcer said something about going out and getting a chili dog in there. You got to hear that again. You go back and you watch it again. I'm pretty sure. The announcer said, "Can't wait till this is over. I got to go get a chili dog." Okay. Listen, it's been an unseasonably chilly and in some places downright cold beginning to spring just about everywhere in the country. But wow, boy, Colorado has been nailed by not just below freezing temperatures, but how about numerous heavy snowstorms since the beginning of the baseball season, leading to numerous delays and postponements, as I had mentioned before, including a day-night doubleheader that was played in Colorado on Monday, this past Monday, with the Atlanta Braves, where the temperature at the beginning of the opening game was 23 degrees. In the pics that you can see here behind me.
Come on alive, and I'm gone in there.
In the pics that you can see here behind me, you can see how the players took the field, had even snow on the trees in the background. It looked more like a cover to a Christmas card than an early season baseball game in mid-April. Okay, we've been reporting for a couple of weeks now how baseball fans from all across the country have been speaking out more dramatically this season than ever before. Add the Giants now to that list. Someone in San Francisco really doesn't like the often talked about PED using success of one Barry Bonds. Well, at least that's my guess anyhow. A spokesman for the San Francisco Giants revealed yesterday that a commemorative plaque recognizing Bonds' 756th home run was stolen off the outfield wall of the ballpark. Have you ever seen this thing? It's enormous. I don't know how.
Oh, I can imagine. It's huge. I don't know where somebody would store it.
I wouldn't know either.
But if anybody's looking for a really big sign, hit me up.
Apparently, Bonds' Giants Hall of Fame plaque is missing as well. Do you know anything about that one?
It might be. Check my eBay store.
You might remember that the dysfunctional Miami Marlins, well, they replaced manager Ozzie Guillen after just one season last year and handed the keys to the clubhouse to Mike Redmond. But apparently that's all Redmond's duties include, opening up and locking up at the end of the day. Aside from fans, it seems the Marlins brass is now pissing off the mere handful of worthwhile players they still have. The Marlins the other day played a doubleheader on Tuesday, and both Jose Fernandez and Ricky Nolasco were scheduled in the regular rotation. Baseball tradition is that the senior pitcher gets to choose whether he wants the first or second game, but Nolasco was never consulted. Apparently, Marlins manager Redmond wasn't either. Redmond was told Nolasco would play the second game, much to Nolasco's chagrin. Now players in the clubhouse are grumbling, and rumors have run amok that Redmond has no say in the day-to-day game day decisions. How far can Loria go? Seriously, honest to God. All right, there's my screwball stories for the week. Let's go take a look at our Frat House Sports Facebook post of the week, which was posted yesterday. And it is part of my daily Today in Sports History postings. Where yesterday I reposted that in 1961, LA Dodger pitcher Sandy Koufax struck out 18 hitters and becoming the first major league pitcher to accomplish that twice. That post got the most views of the week, and perhaps maybe yours could as well. So what you got to keep doing is checking out our Facebook page, visiting that, commenting, leaving your own posts, all of that over at Frat House Sports. NBA playoffs. You got an update for us.
Yep, it's my favorite time of the NBA season, playoffs. So let's go take a look at the playoff games that began last Saturday, with each series getting 2 games in so far. In the West, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder lead their series against the Rockets 2-0. Surprise there?
No.
I don't think so. Same result with San Antonio over the Lakers. I think we're going to see the Lakers take an early exit.
Yeah.
So, great for you guys to make the playoffs, but sayonara.
Mm-hmm.
The Golden State Warriors and the Denver Nuggets are tied 1-1. The Clippers are up on the Grizzlies 2-0. In the East, we've got the Heat over the Bucks 2-0.
Yeah.
No surprise there.
Nope.
Same result with the Knicks over the Celtics and the Pacers over the Hawks. And currently, the Bulls and the Nets are 1-1. And there's 3 games scheduled for this evening. We've got the Heat and the Bucks, Nets and Bulls, and Clippers Grizzlies. By next week, we'll be in round 2, so we'll have an update of who was out and who's
in and who's moving on. Right. All right, let's go take a look, real quick look at the shortened NHL season doings.
Oh, yay, my favorite segment.
And there were no changes in our division leaders this week. And with just 2 to 3 games remaining in this shortened season, I'm going to keep this real simple. All the division leaders you see here have clinched the playoffs. There it is. In the East, you can add to those the Islanders, Canadiens, and Maple Leafs. Still fighting to get in with just 2 to 3 games remaining include the Senators, who have the 7th seed, the Rangers right now with the 8th seed, and the Jets, who still have a chance. They would be a 9, but could kick one of those 2 out. In the West, you add all the Western Division leaders here. Add to those the Blues, the Kings, and the Sharks. And still fighting to get in would include the number 7 seed Minnesota Wild, number 8 seed Detroit Red Wings, and believe it or not, number 9 Columbus Blue Jackets, who could, as in the same case in the East, could kick either one of those 2 out. All right? And we'll be obviously bringing all of the playoff implications to you next week. Okay. Now, we have joked all this shortened season about Sidekick's lack of participation in our NHL hockey updates, as he has remained stalwart in his conviction not to return to hockey until next season in protest to the lockout that lasted until January.
By golly.
However, he has agreed to talk a bit of hockey this evening, but that's only because it has something to do with next season. Sidekick, there was a proposal put forth last week that the NHL would add 5 additional outdoor games to the already existing Winter Classic, which traditionally has been played on New Year's Day. Now, I know you've got your opinion on it, and I want to get to that. But before we do, last Friday, Jonathan Regis and I had our good friend Russ Cohen on the air on Fan Junkies Radio. And Russ is a sports author. He recently wrote and released the definitive journal of the history of the modern Winter Classic. There it is right there. And let me bring you just a couple of minutes of his comments from that broadcast. Here you go.
If nobody knows Russ, Russ wrote a couple of books. We got 100 Ranger Greats, and he just wrote a book, The Winter Classic, to speak about the NHL Winter Classic. So who better to have on to talk about this than Russ Cohen? So, Russ, you read the proposed plan here for the 6 outdoor games.
Yep.
What are your feelings on the whole thing?
Well, it's kind of interesting. As we know, it's not finalized because we cornered Peter Luco of the Flyers, and he swore he knew nothing about it and said, well, if the NHL comments on it, then come back and see me. So it was kind of comical the other night. But I think what they're trying to do is cash in a bit regionally. I think the one thing that I saw on the internet and on Twitter and everywhere else was that there'll be 6 Winter Classics, and of course there won't be. There'll be 1 Winter Classic, there'll be 1 Heritage Classic. Then there seems to be these regional games, and the regional games, could it water down the Winter Classic over time? Yeah, it could, but for every person that wants to bitch about it online on Facebook and Twitter and everywhere else, there's 10 others that are going to buy tickets, and some of those people that are bitching will buy tickets. So it kind of makes me laugh in that regard. I do understand the concern, but I don't think it's the fans' concern to worry about how this is going to be rolled out and if it's going to work. The league is going to worry about if it works or not, and you worry about watching if you want to watch or not. I mean, the biggest thing is, to me, when I first heard about it, was it cost $1 million for that machine that they bring out there to basically set up one of these events. So now, obviously, they'll have to double up on that because they just won't have enough time. So that's interesting. So they're making a significant investment in this. Obviously, I believe it'll pay off. I believe they'll get more TV coverage out of it. Yeah. I'm also thinking, and this is totally 100% speculation, but when I saw ESPN breaking the story, it made me think maybe ESPN is trying to get some sort of limited NHL coverage the same way TBS has it with MLB, because generally ESPN is not usually the first to sort of break these kinds of stories, but if they were negotiating, then they certainly would have inside information. So that's just my guess.
Russ, obviously you can't get in the head of Gary Bettman or the folks over there, but what do you think is the motive to this? Frankly, I'm opposed to it. I frankly thought you would be as well, only because of the fact that, you've kind of held up the whole event of the Winter Classic. To me, I think it does kind of dilute the Winter Classic. What do you think the motive is?
Well, I think the motive is money. I think the motive is fan demand, and I think the motive is the teams really want it. Now, I do think it will dilute it, and do I think 6 is too many? Yeah, but I can't denounce it because I think there's still going to be some great games that come out of it. And just as an example, okay, whether you like it or not, 2 days ago, Martin Brodeur came out and said, hey, I would love to play the Rangers in Yankee Stadium next year, where we were all thinking he was retiring this year. So now all of a sudden, this probably fires him up for another season because it seems like he's coming back now. And certainly he shut out the Flyers last night. I covered that game, so I would say that would even fire him up even more. So you might get some situations where they get to put guys like that on a big stage, Brodeur, and he hadn't played in one of those games. And I heard Chris Draper talking on NHL Network Radio recently about his time at the Winter Classic when he played in Wrigley in 2008, I think it was, and it was unbelievable. He said it was a lifetime achievement for him to have his family there and go through the whole thing. So I think we have to sort of look at it that way, too. I understand we on the East Coast look at that Dodger Stadium one and say, boy, that's a joke. That's terrible. How could you do it? However, I think people on the West Coast aren't going to care about the Islander-Ranger one either. And that's where I think it sort of gets regionalized a little bit.
Okay, Sidekick, there you go. You heard Russ's comments there. What's your sense and what's your opinion on the addition of these five additional outdoor games for next season?
I don't really like it.
Okay.
I mean, I can see where you might want to say, hey, there's a regional game, some other folks are going to get to see it, but I think it's still going to wash it out because if you're, every year you're having these 6 games, right? It's, you're going to have every region having a Winter Classic game every year.
Yeah, it dilutes it is what my point was. It doesn't make it special.
It's let's be honest, it's a money grab.
In
my opinion, it's strictly a money grab for the NHL. I mean, you look at the NHL. We were talking about this pre-show. Half the season, they were locked out. And half the season, they've now almost made what they made last year. Mm-hmm. And, if you look at projections, if they played a full season, they would have beaten last year.
Absolutely.
And this goes to why I, have, basically said, hey, I'm not coming back to the NHL. but you've got all the fan base that's come back, and plus either more fans or the current fans are spending more money.
Right.
And I think the NHL is looking at it as, hey, they came back in droves after a lockout. How can we take advantage on this? Russ was saying, I think he was quoting, $1 million for this equipment to do the game.
Right.
But the NHL wouldn't be doing it if they weren't going to make that money back.
Obviously.
Obviously.
To me, as you heard my comments in the radio show, to me it kind of takes away from the specialness of the Winter Classic. And it's a funny thing because we talk about the Winter Classic almost as if it's been around for decades and decades. It's really only been around for about, less than 10 years, folks. So it's a funny thing how we suddenly tag a tradition on something that's as young as it is. But there it is. All right. Well, we appreciate, and the fans appreciate you actually providing us with a little...
Well, plus it kind of clears up, I'm sure. I know we've got new fans coming into the show, and they're probably wondering, why is Sidekick always sitting there goofing around?
Jerk.
Yeah, well, basically, I said at the beginning of the season I was not going to do any NHL updating or anything as part of my lockout of the NHL.
Sidekick locked
Shut up and start talking.
Sidekick locked them out. Alrighty. All right, that's our show for this week. A packed one it was, and I know we ran a little bit over time there, so I apologize, but I hope you got something out of that. All right, let's run around real quick and thank all of those that support us, and we try to support them, and that includes fanjunkies.net. Get over there, sign up with them. Free social networking just for sports nuts and geeks like all of us. Get over there, do it. It's free, it's simple, it's easy. Fan Junkies Radio. You can hear it Monday, Wednesday, Friday with Jonathan Regis and myself. You just heard a clip that Jonathan and I, when we had Russ Cohen on. And, of course, my show on Saturdays, Frat House Saturday, you can hear over on Fan Junkies Radio every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. HerbFM.com, Herb FM Sports. They've been rebroadcasting us now for months. We appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys, down there in Maryland. CLW83.com. That's my buddy Carl and Jim over there. Rebroadcast all of the Fan Junkies Radio Network programming, which includes, of course, 5 Minutes at Frat House. So make sure you're supporting them as well. CLW83.com and FratHouseSports.net, our own website and production as well. All right. There you have it. That's our show for the last week of April. We will be back with you here. May Day coming up next week. Keep us real, keep us live, keep us going. We'll see you then.
Joey Logano was trying to get by on the inside. You'll see Joey coming along here. Thinks Kyle's going to stay up next to the wall, but the car comes down, and that is amazing.
Yeah, Joey was all the way on the apron.
He felt like Kyle was probably going to stay outside up next to the wall, but the car was just coming down the hill. And look at that 22 car just goes airborne. What an impact. Oh, my gosh.
Wow.
That is unbelievable.
Kyle, not really a good day for you. What happened out there?
Spun out twice, all on our own. Just don't know what to do with Kansas.
What do you think about the track? Otherwise, you just no grip on the track today?
Yeah, absolutely no grip for me, anyways. But you're running third, doing fine. Car a little tight, and you spin out. I don't know what to do with that. And then we're back in traffic all day. Traffic's way worse. Just trying to get back up to the front and making some gains, but car just snaps out from you every corner.